Welcome to Channel 9's Community Spotlight program. This show is titled The Stars F-Word Debate, and what we hope to do is inform you about the subject of fluoride and how it affects Dunedin with the help of our panel of guests. Now, throughout the show, if we do provoke a reaction from you, that's great. What we ask you to do is send your questions in to us. There's several ways that you can get in touch with us. You can email us, debate@ch9.co.nz. You can pick up the phone and give us a call, 4774 774, or you can send us snail mail at Fluoride Debate, Channel 9, PO Box 517, Dunedin. And Channel 9 also have an online poll where you can go online and vote on this subject. Just head to our website, it's www.ch9.co.nz. And if the response is hefty enough, then Channel 9 will ask in some representatives from the ORC and the DCC to come in and answer your questions about fluoride. Well, I'd now like to welcome our panel of guests and introduce them to you. Speaking in support of fluoride, to my right and your left, is Dr. Dorothy Boyd, Specialist Children's Dentistry and Senior Public Health Dentist for ODHB. Welcome. Dr. John Holmes, Medical Officer for Health and Public Health South and the ODHB, and also Mark Miller, homemaker, I believe. And speaking against fluoride, and to my left is Ms. Olive McRae, a representative from the Dunedin Fluoride Action Network of New Zealand. Dr. Bruce Spittle, a Dunedin psychiatrist and author of the book Fluoride Fatigue, and Ms. Mary Burns, founding member of the Fluoride Action Network. Thank you very much for all coming in. Well, to get the show underway, Channel 9 took to the streets to ask a small sample of the public what they know about fluoride. This is what they had to say.
I know that it featured in the movie Conspiracy Theory. Apparently it makes people apathetic.
Oh. Something that's supposed to help make your teeth healthier?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, and would you like to elaborate?
A substance in toothpaste to help protect teeth. Well, it's in the water actually.
Yes, it is something used for hardening our teeth.
I understand it's something they put in toothpaste to make your teeth whiter and in the water. So I don't know if it's good or bad. It doesn't sound too good to me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's on your teeth.
See?
Something about your teeth or something.
Well, so based on that response, we're going to throw first of all to our panel of guests that are in support of fluoride, Dorothy, John and Mark. Could you please answer this question? It's a three-parter. What is fluoride? Where does it come from? And why is it in Dunedin's drinking water?
Well, I start by doing the chemistry. Fluoride is an element. It's the ninth element in the periodic table. It is about the 15th most common element in the Earth's crust. It's part of the family of what are called the halogens, and it's the oldest. It's the smallest one. So we've got fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, and a synthetic one, actinium, which is the fifth one. Now they're all highly active, negatively charged ions. But they're essential for life. I mean, chloride is an essential feature of our bodies. Iodine, we need iodine in order to produce thyroxine to live. So that's where they come from. Fluorine is used in lots of chemicals. It's highly reactive. What the newer generation of antibiotics, the fluocloxacillin, the fluoroquinolones, all have their action related to the fact they've got fluorine in them. And it's interesting that our non-stick frying pans, which have got Teflon in, rely on fluorine, as does our Gore-Tex to keep us dry. It's also a fluorine-based compound.
Okay, so why is it in our water?
Perhaps I could answer the question from a tooth decay perspective, and I'd like to take you a little bit further back to what tooth decay is. If I went out and asked people in the street what causes tooth decay, most people would say sugar or lollies, maybe. But when you ask them how it causes tooth decay, then people aren't quite so sure. And the process involved in tooth decay is that when you consume sugars, or cooked starches in fact, not just sugars, the bacteria that are in plaque in your mouth, on your teeth, make acid. And acid causes dissolving or demineralizing of your tooth surface. Over time, then your tooth surface hardens again. And that's called remineralizing or hardening up. And I often explain it as if I'm a balance, and when you consume something with sugar or cooked starch in it and you get a little bit of dissolving of enamel, it's just like you've got a tipping of the balance, and that over time saliva will harden, so that's dissolving. Over time saliva will harden your tooth again. What fluoride does, whatever it's in, whether it's in toothpaste or in water, it slows down that dissolving process and it speeds up the hardening process. So when it's topped up in our water supply, it's to assist in that. But it's in our water anyway because it dissolves out of rocks, so all water supplies have fluoride in it. The Dunedin water supply doesn't have enough to help with that tooth decay protective benefit.
So are you saying it's purely for a tooth decay reason?
It's there, it's topped up for a tooth decay reason, but it's in our water anyway because it washes off rocks and it washes off soil, and fluoride is in soil and in rocks. So all water supplies have fluoride in them, but ours is at too low a level to benefit oral health.
Okay. Well, over to our team that are not in support. What do you guys think about it being in the water?
Well, basically, the fluoride that we're using to fluoridate our water, we currently purchase from Belgium, where it's illegal to fluoridate water. It's also illegal to sell fluoridated tablets because of the ill health effects that fluoridation causes. So we purchase this industrial waste that is actually from a byproduct from the fertilising industry. We purchase that from Belgium and we put it in our water. We're not topping up the level, we're adding industrial waste. There is naturally occurring calcium fluoride in our water, however the fluoride that we're using is industrial waste.
Okay, and guys don't want to add anything to that?
Yes, I think that the idea that fluoride is essential for health in the same way that iodine is not true. There's no evidence that fluoride is essential for life. Now, we don't have fluoride in our water in Dunedin, we have silicofluoride. What's added is called silicofluoride, which differs in its biological effects from fluoride and is more toxic. And although there's 0.1 part per million of fluoride in the natural Dunedin water, the council bumps it up to 0.85 parts per million, which becomes toxic. And many people in Dunedin are sick as a result of that, approximately 1,000.
What kind of illnesses would you have if you have too much fluoride?
Well, the one that I think is at the top of the list of concerns is the effect that the fluoride has on the developing brain of our children. And in recent years there's become an increased awareness. There's a whole range of what they call developmental difficulties and learning problems, autism, ADHD, occurring in children as a result of toxic agents in the environment. Now, some of these have been identified, and there's a list of things like arsenic and lead and mercury. And fluoride's recently been added to that list as a emerging neurotoxin of concern. And the recent scientific consensus statement outlines that. So I think that the important thing is that fluoride is toxic to the developing brain of children. We'll come on to some of these points later, but one of the adverse effects of fluoride that you'll see in something like a third of Dunedin children is the presence of dental fluorosis, chalky white patches on the teeth. And the reason that's there is that during tooth development, during the first 6 years, there's been an interference with the function of the thyroid hormone, which is involved with tooth development. And the result of that interference is this chalky white dental fluorosis. Now, that same thyroid hormone is required for the development of the brain, which is going on from in utero life till adolescence. And the effect of impairing thyroid function at that stage is to risk impairing brain development. So that's the top of the list, but there's a long list of things, and we'll come on to those shortly.
Okay, I notice a bit of feverish writing going on over here. Would you like to respond?
Sure thing. Just a few. Dorothy will pick up on the scientific side of things, but it's funny we hear about all these 1,000 people in Dunedin who are affected by this, but I don't know if there's ever been a case recorded in Dunedin by a GP or anyone sort of health professional-wise who could corroborate this concept. Also, fluoride tends to get blamed for everything. Over the last 50 years it's been in our water and it's been in there quite safely. It's not a new thing, it hasn't just happened last week. And there's been a whole bunch of things that have happened recently, like changes in lifestyle, changes in diet, which could attribute to what Dr. Spittle's talking about.
Okay, Dorothy?
I'd like to talk a little bit about dental fluorosis, if I may. Dental fluorosis is a defect of the enamel, as good Dr. Bruce has pointed out. It's present in fluoridated communities, but it's also present in non-fluoridated communities, and it is considered to be due to excessive amounts of fluoride during enamel development that affects the tooth and the surface of the tooth. Now, the most recent study in New Zealand was done in Southland in 2005, and that study showed us that 32% of children in a fluoridated area had very mild or mild fluorosis. And what that actually looks like is little white flecks on the surface of the teeth. That study told us that in most instances less than a third of the tooth surface was involved, so a very small amount of the tooth surface. And that study also showed us that children in communities with no topped-up fluoride in the water, that same defect happened in 19% of them. So it's not something that's just related to fluoridated areas. There are other causes of enamel defects. Trauma to baby teeth. You know, if a little one falls over on a coffee table and bumps the front tooth, then that can cause a defect of the enamel on the permanent tooth as it grows and develops. Those kind of defects are called a different name. They're called demarcated opacities. They occur equally in both fluoridated and non-fluoridated communities, as do hypoplastic defects, which is another kind of defect again. But the severe fluorosis is very, very rare in New Zealand, extremely rare. Much more common in countries where they have high levels of natural fluoride in their water. And it's important to point out that in those countries, yes, fluoride should be reduced in those water supplies, but in ours it needs to be topped up for health, not reduced.
Okay, we'll get further into the research in the next ad break, and we'll also take a look at how it's decided whether fluoride is safe or not.
Hi, I'm Christine from Carpet Court. There's lots of claims about price in our industry. I've got one question for you. If Carpet Court Dunedin sells more carpet than any other retailer in New Zealand, who do you think will have the best prices? We also have Otago's largest range of flooring options and probably more industry experience under one roof than anywhere else in New Zealand. But still, the greatest enjoyment we get is when we see your face when the job is done. Then we can truly say you'll love the look.
I am just like you, but with some things you would consider every day as easy, I need some help with. I need a support worker who can assist me with work, problem solving, socialising, shopping. If you're interested in helping people in your community like me, contact the Community Care Trust for professional career opportunities. Enrich your life and others. Work for the Community Care Trust.
Inside this home, a marvellous transformation is taking place. Come on, let's go and see what's been happening. Friendly staff and a world of ideas, materials and accessories to draw on. K Kitchens can make your dream kitchen a reality. It's a great kitchen. It's a K Kitchen.
Recording someone of energy distortion. Can't break free. Need immediate help.
Here at Mosgiel Computers, we can take care of any of your computer needs, day or night. From protecting your PC from viruses to installing your brand new PC system. Come visit us here in Mosgiel or just call for free advice on 489 7699.
No matter how large or small the job, the team at Wrens will deliver the highest standard of work and will stand by the work they do. commercial, residential and industrial. James Wren & Co Limited offer a huge range of quality services for your building needs. And if you're doing it yourself, Wren's Resine Colour Shop in Mosgiel is the only resine retail outlet on the plains. At James Wren & Co Dunedin, we stand by the work we do.
Well, I would hope so, because it's in our water. We have to drink our water. It's in our toothpaste. We assume it is safe. I haven't done any elaborate research on it, but I'm hoping it's safe.
Yes.
No. I don't like it and I don't want it in our water, and I think it's unproven. It's not safe. Okay?
No.
I believe it should be in the water in small amounts, absolutely, because I think that it's important on keeping people's teeth healthy.
I have no idea, but I don't think it is. If they have to put it in, no. I don't think it is.
Welcome back to the Stars F Word debate. Some interesting comments there from the public. Well, let's go now to Dorothy and her team. And what research is involved in deciding whether fluoride is safe or not for Dunedin's water?
Well, the same research that decides whether it's safe for Dunedin is the research that goes on internationally. And we have independent reviews where panellists and large numbers of panellists plough through all the scientific literature. They work out what's quality science and what's not, and then with their multiple numbers of papers that are quality, they go through them and find their results and share their results with us. And there are a number of reviews. The most recent one was the National Health and Medical Research Council from Australia in 2007. As well as that, we have monitoring from our own Ministry of Health for health effects and specific research related to fluoridation, like how much dental fluorosis is out there in the community and things like that. And we have our own population data which shows us that the only health effect that we're seeing in communities that have fluoride docked up into their water is that they have better oral health. The only health effect.
Now over to our Against team. How do you guys feel about the research?
Can I just go back to the dental fluorosis issue? Now, currently in New Zealand, we know we've got around about 30% of children in fluoridated areas have got some form of dental fluorosis. Now, the only way a person can get dental fluorosis is from having too much fluoride. So, and even though some children in non-fluoridated areas are starting to get it as well, that should be a really big sign to us that we are just getting way too much fluoride. Now, it's in toothpaste these days. When fluoridation started, we didn't have access to other types of fluoride. Now fluoride's in lots of places. So the vast majority of people buy a fluoridated toothpaste. And the other important thing is the theory on how fluoride worked has changed. So after 50 years of people saying, you know, we had to drink it because it was good for the formation of teeth and blah, 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 that's actually changed. After 50 years, they've said, no, 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 it's actually this remineralisation theory, which means you have to have teeth. So when you look at babies, it's just all risk. There's actually no benefit to a baby. And I know that a lot of people feel that we're sort of, you know, not the authorities or whatever, but the American Dental Association and the Centre for Disease Control, which is an arm of the US Public Health Service, are recommending that babies do not have fluoridated tap water. Now that's not some fringe type of person. That's the reason we actually have fluoridation is because of the US Public Health Service. Now if they're issuing warnings that babies should not be given fluoridated tap water, that's actually serious. And we know that 30% of children have had too much fluoride.
Yeah, sure.
And the American Dental Association and the Research Council didn't issue a warning. They issued a recommendation for American parents in America, not New Zealand, that if they were concerned about dental fluorosis, that they may wish to not use fluoridated tap water. Now, the differences between America and between New Zealand are, there are lots of them, lots and lots of them, but one of them is that the maximum amount of fluoride that's allowed in the water there is much higher than here. Now, again, our Ministry of Health has looked at the issue, has thought hard about the issue, and doesn't have those concerns because we don't have the problems that they have, and we don't have the high levels of natural fluoride occurring in our water that they do over there. And we're talking about more than 4 or 5 times as much.
Can I please say something about that?
Sorry. Oh, better throw it to me.
It's just that I feel that that's really misleading, because what the levels they're talking about is 0.7 milligrams a litre upwards. That is the levels that we have in New Zealand, from 0.7 milligrams to 1 milligram a litre. And if you look on the CDC site, it says quite plainly, 0.7 milligrams a litre upwards. And the vast majority of Americans who have fluoridated water, they have it at those levels. It's only 0.5% of American population that receives high amounts of fluoride. So the American warning, I can't see any reason why that doesn't apply here. And as you said before, we rely on overseas research and everything to say it's safe. Well, if the same people are saying it's not safe for babies, I think we need to listen to them.
I also have issues with what you say, because it's not a warning, it's a recommendation about an aesthetic appearance, and it's sorry, I've lost my train of thought because you've interrupted. It's not a warning, it's a recommendation, and I think it's really misleading to tell people that it's a warning where it's simply a recommendation.
Now, if I can steer us back to the question of research, which is what we led out with, and it was up to you guys to comment. What do you think about the research that's done on fluoride?
If I could firstly reply to Mark's earlier statements, there was 2 of them. One was that he was not aware of any report in the peer-reviewed medical literature of adverse effects to anyone in Dunedin from their consumption of fluoride. Well, if he was to read the journal Fluoride, which specialises in research on fluoride, he will find... Is that funny?
Yeah, it's just that... carry on, Bruce. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I am interested to hear...
believe that you actually write that journal, or... Yeah.
If we can get back to the question there, Bruce.
The journal Fluoride was first published in 1968. It's the only journal that specialises in research on fluoride. It's got a distinguished international board of editors. The articles are all peer-reviewed. It's not something that's really the subject of comedy. It's a serious effort to put the science of fluoridation out in the area where it can be discussed by publishing peer-reviewed literature. And the Society also sponsors international conferences on fluoride research, with the 28th conference being held this year. I think to say that I write the journal is perhaps giving me more credit than I'm due. I'm the managing editor for the journal, which is involved with publishing the nuts and bolts. And I was saying, in the January to March issue this year is a case report on peptic ulcer pain, indigestion, peptic ulcer pain due to fluoride in a Dunedin resident. Now, the other point was that there may be some other changes that have taken place that explain this association between various symptoms and the occurrence of fluoridation. And that's correct, that association doesn't provide any etiological information. So you've got to do what are called double-blind studies, for example, and those have been done, where people who have responded to fluoride in an adverse way have been subjected to double-blind testing, with their symptoms being reproduced. And there was a trial involving a Dutch general practice some years ago which identified that a number of people reacted in this way, and that led to Holland discontinuing fluoridation through the work of Dr. Hans Muhlenberg.
Okay, Mark.
No, just one question, Bruce. I don't want to do to and fro's all night, but I can't resist the opportunity. Has there ever been an article published in your journal that supports fluoride or says positive things about fluoride, not as a critique?
Yeah. The International Society the International Society for Fluoride Research doesn't take a position on fluoridation. It was established to put the science forward. It doesn't take any position on fluoridation. It welcomes articles of good scientific quality. The only criterion for acceptance is that it's got good science in it. And we've had people who promote that. They're members of the Society who are in favour of fluoridation. The Society is there to encourage the debate and interchange of information. And the criterion for publication is not whether or not it's against fluoridation, but whether it contains good science based on proper material.
John, you got anything to add?
Only to come back to really the question of America and this country. The maximum acceptable value of fluoride in water in the States is actually 4 parts per million. Here it's 1.5 parts per million. Our level is below that.
Why is ours so much lower than America's?
Because ours is in keeping with what the World Health Organization recommends. America's is too high, and I understand that they are taking steps to bring it down.
I'd like to add that when you're not looking for ill health effects and you don't acknowledge that they exist and you're not recording them, then it's easy to say that they don't exist. We can all ignore that there's any ill health effects and then say that there's none, which is what's going on.
But when the National Research Council did their big review in 2006, and this is kind of like the major thing that's happened in recent years, because it was a 12-member study. They took 3 years to complete this, and they were all top fluoride experts from North America. They sort of came out with saying there are so many things that we need to study about fluoride. We need to study the effects on the bone, the thyroid, even going back to birth defects, which people had sort of discredited at one stage. But all of these things I was saying, there's a dearth of studies. So really nobody knows. So to say that there isn't it, it's because people haven't studied. And I would say if you look at our population, that we are actually experiencing the things people would expect from too much fluoride, like arthritis, underactive thyroid, ADHD, all that sort of stuff is what people would expect from fluoride, and we are seeing that in our population.
Okay, thanks Mary. After the break, we take a look at how Dunedin ended up with fluoride in our drinking water and who makes that decision for us.
Ooh, when will I see myself on TV, Anita?
Well, if you tune into Channel 9 weekdays at 4:30, you'll be able to see yourself on television.
What else will I see, Anita?
You will have half an hour of some great stories and, of course, some crazy facts from you.
Yes.
And a whole lot of fun on Story Time. Weekdays, 4:30, Channel 9.
Be there!
Mag and Turbo are now in King Edward Street, South Dunedin, and now offer a drive-through tyre and wheel alignment service. New Zealand Blood Services clinic times are most days 7:30 till 12. Call 477 9920 for appointments and to inquire about the mobile clinic dates and times. Everyone is welcome. Looking to hire a skip? Otago Metal Industries, 33 Brighton Road, Dunedin, for all your skip hire requirements. Phone 488 4555. Kitchens for Less can competitively design a kitchen for you. Call into their showroom at 67 Hillside Road, South Dunedin, or phone 455 9973. Castle Street panel beaters, approved by major insurance companies and proud to be a member of the Collision Repair Association. They now offer a free courtesy car service. Just speak to your insurance provider. Hard to start? Fast Fit Battery and Auto Services offer free delivery and installation citywide. Phone 0800 322 783.
Gardens Veterinary Clinic, Dunedin's leading veterinary service, and Pet Planet with Dunedin's largest selection of pets and pet supplies, all under one roof for your convenience.
Do you buy a new petrol tank every time your car runs out of gas? No. You just fill it up. The specialists at Cartridge World will do the same for your printer, fax or photocopier, saving you up to 50%. And it's quick, with a 1-hour service available on most refills. And they recondition cartridges, all with a 100% guarantee. So save with the refill specialists. Cartridge World. Just call, click or visit a store near you.
Home Plus, custom made for your home.
Come and find us at the bottom of Stone Street in Kaikorai Valley. We have a great range to choose from here on site, or we custom make to your specifications. Awnings, balustrades, gates, security and insect screens, showers, wardrobes, or a bidet. Come and visit us.
Home Plus, custom made for your home.
Home Plus.
gone. I'm leaving, he said, train ride right through your head. Yeah, the tracks shine in the sun. My man's gone, is what
The country, or no? I have no idea.
No.
Isn't it a mineral? No, I don't know. Fluoride.
No. No. Not particularly.
No, I don't.
Welcome back to the Stars F Word debate, and in this section we're going to talk about who says yes we can have fluoride in our water. First of all, to Dorothy and her team, what process is involved in the decision to add fluoride to Dunedin's drinking water supply?
Well, if I can start, I think the Council debated the question of fluoride in the drinking water about 2 years ago and agreed to leave it in the water. What's brought this whole debate to the surface now is the fact that the Waitati and Warrington community has a very poor water supply, and currently they're on a boil water notice, which means that the water isn't safe to drink unless it's boiled. Within that water there are the breakdown products of organic matter that's been contaminated, that's been disinfected with chlorine, so that the Waitati supply is regularly monitored for the level of chlorine breakdown products, which are much more dangerous to health than fluoride. And the Council agreed 4 years ago to extend the Dunedin water supply to Waitati and Warrington. And it's only when this became apparent that people in Waitati said, we don't want fluoride. And really what's happening is that 2,500 people on the Warrington-Waitati supply are really holding the rest of the 89,000 of people on the Dunedin supply to ransom.
So who can say yes you're going to get it, no you're not going to get it?
The Council.
And if all the people said no we don't want it, they're still going to go and say yes, here have it?
Well, it's the Council who decides. I mean, you elect the Council in every 3 years.
That they're not listening to the people?
Well, if I could maybe explain that the council are elected to make decisions, and they make lots of decisions on behalf of the people. Sometimes they ask the people and they choose to do things like referenda. The problem with asking the people in a referendum is that referenda are notoriously weighted against any issue. So if you send out a referendum on any issue, the people who are against the issue will be the people that vote. And you know yourself, if you look at the figures for the last year's elections, voter turnout's quite small.
Okay, well,
so you don't
talk
necessarily
about
get
the
a
referendum
vote
later. We'll throw to our team that's not in support of fluoride. What do you think about the DCC having total control of that?
Well, if I could just reply to some of the points raised by Dorothy in the previous section. One was that the Australian NHMRC report, a systematic review, found no evidence of harm. They did that because they ignored the reports of harm that were published by Dr. Waldbott. He published 142 papers on fluoride. The NHMRC report ignored them all.
And actually the NHMRC have said about the high levels of dental fluorosis, and in their 1999 report they said that they considered severe dental fluorosis an adverse health effect. So in actual fact they are finding adverse health effects, and what we don't know with dental fluorosis is if it's damaged people's teeth, what other damage has it done?
Now, Mary and Bruce, if I could just interrupt here, the question is about who gets to add the fluoride to the water, and that's what we're talking about just now, so if we can comment on that.
Well, I'd like to comment on that. Dunedin people were actually given the chance back in the 50s through a referendum, and in which case they voted just about 2-1 against fluoride. The council then went and did it anyway, against the people's wishes. Ever since, the council have carried on doing that. It's a little bit strange that it's forced on people against their will. We wouldn't put any other forms of medication into the water supply. You cannot simply go around medicating people against their will. If you were to go and put medication in somebody's drink, you'd be arrested. That's exactly what's happening.
Just a point, the Ministry of Health has agreed, and from September next year, everybody will take folic acid in their bread that folic acid will be
That's a
added to
choice.
bread. It is not a choice.
I will be buying bread that doesn't have it in. Organic bread is exempt. You
Yeah,
still have a
precise-
choice. You have a
And
choice.
that doesn't make it right.
You have a choice whether you'd like to purchase that bread or not. It's not a necessity of life to have bread. Bread is not a necessity of life. Water should be something readily available to all public, free of charge, and it should be uncontaminated from medications.
Just a point about the referendum that was made, if I could just jump in. Quite quick, there's a history about that, and what Olive says is almost all true. There was a referendum back in the 50s, and it was resoundingly voted against. Shortly after the results of that referendum, a study from the North Island of New Zealand revealed some results of one of the most successful fluoride before and afters ever. Which town was it in, Dorothy? Hastings. And they had about 80% improvement in oral health, which was massive, the biggest ever. And then as a result, it was brought back into the fray again, some 16, 17 months after the original council said no. The new council decided, are we going to put this to a referendum again, or are we just going to make a good decision and good government? And they chose to do good government.
They call that dictatorship.
And the result is, yeah, they had submissions. They had 70 or 80 submissions.
And the vast majority were for.
Yeah, and the majority were for.
I think the point had been made that people had originally decided that they didn't want it. That was overruled by the council. We don't live in a dictatorship.
But the knowledge changed in the meantime.
If people would like
Just one
to
at a
have
time, please.
medication-free water, then that should be their right. Dunedin people should have the right to have water that's a necessary thing to sustain life without medication in it. We don't live in a society that dictates what medication people should take. I wouldn't say, oh, I think Dunedin are a little bit depressed, let's chuck some Prozac in the water.
Mary?
I'd just like to bring up about the Hastings Napier study, and what kind of worries me about the fact that the DHB and the Ministry of Health are being relied upon to make these decisions is that the Hastings Napier study was shown to be fraudulent. And if Mark Miller is still talking about that today, when if you read the literature you would know that people don't rely on that study anymore because they found that halfway through they changed the mechanism of how they identified dental decay and what they filled, and then they also dropped Napier and took up Palmerston North, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, you know, it sort of worries me that you still talk about that now.
Yes, Dorothy.
Just talking, I think it's probably useful now to talk about literature and the points that Dr. Spittle mentioned about ignoring some of the literature. Some of the literature is ignored because it should be ignored because it's not high quality literature. Science has got to meet a certain standard to enable us to identify what's actually taking place. We can't use single solitary case reports with no backing to identify health risks or health benefits for that matter. We need to use large pools of data and we need to use high quality scientific studies. And I have faith that there isn't a conspiracy here. I have faith that the World Health Organization, the New Zealand Ministry of Health, these independent bodies that have reviewed the issue of fluoridation are honourable people with integrity and are producing good facts for us.
Okay, well, after the break, we discuss whether we should be given the choice to be fluoridated or not. Stay with us.
You must have one of these. It shows that your is registered. All must be registered during July. Otherwise you, as owner of the, may be fined up to. Be a responsible owner and contact your local council for more details. Your will love you for it.
Welcome to Law Courts Hotel. We provide a friendly home away from home atmosphere with great staff and real value for money accommodation.
Our restaurant provides real food at value for money prices. We guarantee you will not be disappointed.
Available every night, every week at the Law Courts. The Jury Room Bar has a very relaxed atmosphere and provides a wide range of beverage and adjacent gaming room.
Raise a glass or two with us and enjoy your stay.
Has there been a referendum?
Well, I think if there's sufficient concerns and maybe enough research on it, then possibly yes.
We should have a referendum of anything that affects our society. So, like the stadium here. No one's talking about it, everyone's afraid about it, but it's a seriously, if anything affects our future, health, welfare, yeah, of course.
Welcome back to the Stars F-word debate, and a referendum sure is a hot topic. Let's get on to it. Dorothy, John and Mark, would a referendum be a good idea for Dunedin?
Dunedin's made its decision, and they had a vote on it recently, and they voted 6-4 in favour of keeping it. Dorothy and I worked on a project last year around Otago and Southland, and the problem is when you have a referendum, as she says, it's very hard to win one, but once you have, then it's always challenged by those who oppose. Yet when we lose one, we've lost one. We just sort of take that on the chin and move forward. The people have spoken. So it's very, very difficult with people who oppose. The other thing too that we haven't spoken about is there's two groups of people who oppose fluoride. There's people who just don't want stuff in their water, and to an extent I can understand that. It's a little short-sighted, but they just don't want things put in their water. Then there's sort of the more, for want of a better word, conspiracy theorists who believe that stuff's being put in the water to make us more pliable or to make us more do as you're told-ish and these sorts of things. And these are the ones who are a reasonably smaller number but very vociferous with their messages.
Yeah.
Okay, Olive?
I'd just like to say that I feel that Mark is definitely bringing the conspiracy theory issue into the debate to make us somehow discredited. We don't believe that there's any conspiracy here in fluoridated water. There is no conspiracy. There's simply, unfortunately, a lack of good scientific information and any moral basis, really.
Interesting point on the scientific information. When we were doing our research for the fluoride campaign, we thought who better to go and ask about fluoride than our local university.
And you paid them $18,000 to give you the answer that you wanted.
What, who? We were just talking about conspiracy theories. Do you want to sort of fill me in on the $18,000?
Well, I've just been, under the Official Information Act, given an estimated cost of $18,000 that you spent on research to support your cause. So who got that $18,000?
Not $1 was given to the Otago University because
where did that $18,000
just
go?
to clarify, we said at the outset that we didn't want to pay anyone for their scientific research, and Dr. Alan Blackman.
So where did the $18,000 that was spent on research go to?
Okay, $18,000 or not, we're talking about a referendum here.
But the issue was, Alan Blackman said, who's a scientist who didn't take any money from us, just like to clarify that, he said that fluoride is fluoride is fluoride. Whether it's a byproduct of a fertiliser process, fertiliser making process, or whether it's rubbed off a rock, when it's in water, fluoride is fluoride. And that's a scientific statement from a doctor from Otago University who's a chemist.
Now, Mark, you said earlier that there was a decision, a vote, and yes, it was 6-1, was it your figure in favour?
6-4.
6-4.
Yeah.
So who did that vote? When was it?
Well, when we went to the council on the Vote Fluoride campaign, they said we've voted on it, and that was the end of it. We just carried on.
When did that happen? What year was that?
February 07.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of people may not have known that. All right. What do you guys think about a referendum?
Well, I think basically we should stop medicating people against their will. Whether it's one person or 1 million people that don't want to be medicated, we shouldn't be medicating anybody against their will. However, if all we can hope for is that we can ask the people, if that's the best that we can hope for, is that we'd be given a referendum and both sides were given equal opportunity to get their point across, then I think that that would be acceptable. I think it would be highly unfair for Public House South to be able to draw from the taxpayers' money and spend $500,000 on advertising corny phrases like Smile for Life and Vote Fluoride, and on the other hand we have to fund purely through donations and out of our own pocket to try and get the facts behind the case brought forward.
Okay, you guys?
$500,000 wasn't spent, but we certainly do have to spend money promoting, because the messages, we promote positive messages, and what we get in return are skull and crossbones and mentioning very serious health conditions which come from, which is said to be coming from fluoride.
What about an alternative of the council issuing fluoride tablets to those who are keen to have it in their water? We
looked at that as well. It was something that came up a lot when we spoke to the councils. Why don't we just give people fluoride tablets? And there's a whole bunch of reasons, but the main one is cost. It's basically roughly per person it's around $30 a year. There's issues with them taking it. You can't go around and make sure people are taking it. And plus you're taking all your medicine, all your fluoride once in the day, and it's better to take a little bit often, as Dorothy's pointed out. with the balance thing. So there's all sorts of things that we sort of investigated, but one of the biggest problem is the people that need it the most with fluoride tablets won't be getting it. And that's what fluoride's about, really. It's about sort of thinking about your neighbour, thinking beyond yourself and doing something for the good of the community.
Okay, Mary?
Yeah, I'd like to say that we're actually thinking about other people as well. You know, this is what we're about, really. And the whole thing about fluoride tablets is that people don't use them anymore because the whole theory changed. So say like they're not recommended, like for babies. It's not recommended, is it, that babies are supplemented with fluoride?
Because people may not particularly want to take a medication doesn't give anyone else the right to go and dose their water with it because they choose not to take it. That's not ethical. It's not ethical to say, oh, you're not taking your medication, so we're going to slip it in your water.
And doing something for your neighbour is good, but taking a medication because maybe your neighbour might get dental decay is kind of going a bit too far.
If one person has a headache, we don't dose the whole population with Panadol to get rid of it.
Just one point about
John.
medication. I'd like to ask the other side, how do they buy their salt?
I don't think that's relevant.
That's not your business.
Yeah. I raise that because it's actually very difficult to get non-medicated salt.
But
We
you
all
can.
have iodine in our salt.
No,
and
not
this is
all.
less medication.
It's a consumer choice. You can purchase salt that doesn't have iodine in it if you prefer. That's a consumer choice. Also,
Chloride?
pardon?
Chloride in the water, would you want that taken out as well?
Iodine's an essential nutrient. And
The
fluoride's
difference
not.
is that fluoride's in the water to affect your bodily function. That's not the same reason that you put chlorine in the water.
Yeah.
I don't have an
treat the water,
objection
isn't
to
it?
that. No.
Sure, Bruce?
If I could comment on some points raised earlier, one was that there was a confusion between the dose and the concentration in the water. It's the dose that's the important thing. And if someone drinks more water because they are involved in heavy manual work, or they're an athlete, or they've got some renal disease, they get a bigger dose. The report from America, says that this group's at risk, and they have to be protected. And you don't do that by saying it's irrelevant what's in America, things don't apply here. This report is the most recent and authoritative report. It raises serious concerns about the thyroid, about arthritis, about bones. In fact, there's a list of things we haven't actually touched on. Bone cancer is related now to fluoride exposure. Arthritis, increased risk of bone fractures, infertility, impaired glucose metabolism, Down syndrome, pineal gland defects, and a chronic fluoride toxicity syndrome, which has tiredness and fatigue.
Okay, thanks,
That's
Bruce. Thanks, Bruce, for getting a short of time here. After the break, we're going to hear closing statements from both teams on the Stars F-Word debate. Thank you.
Come on! If a man stopped every time a woman didn't want it, the world would be a much less exciting place. I mean, I've been married for 10 years. She just needs a bit of persuasion.
How could I say no? He's my husband. I don't know if anyone would believe me, even if I told them what was happening. I still love him. I just want this to stop.
No one deserves to be raped. Call Rape Crisis for information and support.
The Toolshed on Hillside Road have a huge range on site. They offer quality products at reasonable prices and service what they sell.
Every tool you need is at the tool shed.
A joker called Groucho Marx said he wouldn't join any club that would have him as a member. So, you didn't fancy a quiet drink with the mates, Groucho? The odd game of pool? Cabaret nights with the family? Going out for a bit of sport? Because that's what it's about. So if you fancy that, Groucho, it's simple. Join the club.
Stars F-word debate, and it's time now for closing statements. And with the first one is Dorothy Boyd. Over to you.
All right. Well, I'd just like to round up by saying that fluorides in our water to help improve dental health, to reduce dental decay. The children that I see in my practice and that are seen throughout Otago, more of the ones with tooth decay come from the areas that don't have fluoride topped up in their water. And this is about real children, real lives, real holes in teeth, real sleepless nights with tooth decay. And this is something that the community can do to improve oral health. I'd like to remind you that there's 1,000 parts per million of fluoride in your toothpaste that you use, and we're talking about putting less than 1,000th of that into water. And I'd like to just remind you that the National Research Council report that Bruce held up once again there is not about fluoridation of water supplies. It even says in its opening statement that it's not about fluoridation of water supplies at these low levels. It's about fluoride occurring in water at higher levels. Thanks.
Okay, and finally from the Fluoride Action Network, who are against drinking fluoridated water, Olive McRae.
Fluoridation is unsafe, it's unethical and it's ineffective. Using scare tactics such as we're protecting the babies, sleepless nights, things like that, what it comes down to is the Wakawaiti Coast people are not prepared to leave their health in the hands of the unqualified council to make the decision for them. They have taken a stand and said that they want to be in charge of their own health, they want to make their own decision, they want to be asked whether they'd like to be medicated. We would like a localised referendum on the Wakawaiti Coast. There can be no guarantees that babies are not being adversely affected by too much fluoride. People on the Wakawaiti Coast aren't willing to run the risk that other people are. We've stood up, we've said that we'd like to be asked, and we want to be asked. There can't be any two ways about it. The fact that we were already asked in Dunedin some time ago and then were ignored, I think we need to be asked again.
Olive, thank you. Well, that concludes the closing statements. Now, if you wish to send in some questions regarding this subject, and once again, depending on the response that we do receive, we will aim to invite a panel of representatives from the DCC and the ORC in to answer your questions. You can get in touch with us in a variety of ways. You can email us, debate@ch9.co.nz. You could give us a call, 4774 or you could write to us at Fluoride Debate, Channel 9, PO Box 517, in Dunedin. And you can also log on to our website, www.ch9.co.nz, and partake in our fluoridation poll as well. Thank you so much once again to our panel of guests in support of fluoride, Dr. Dorothy Boyd, Dr. John Holmes and Mark Miller, and those against, Olive McRae, Dr. Bruce Spittle and Mary Burns. Thank you very, very much for your time. It's your decision, Dunedin. Thank you for watching. I'm Rebecca Meek. Good night.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.